Hey everyone, welcome to Epic Mindset. If you're watching this or maybe just listening while driving, working, or doing something else, you're in the right place. This video is designed to be easy to follow in the background, so sit back, relax, and let's dive in. In today's episode, you'll learn why cheating happens in relationships. Cheating in relationships has probably existed since forever. Today's times are no surprise. What has changed, however, are the rules of social interaction, or, to be more precise, moral standards have loosened. What was once socially stigmatized is no longer. It has become the norm. It might seem insignificant, but as you'll soon understand, it's a crucial difference. The biological goals for men and women regarding reproduction are different. For scientists, evolutionary, and biologists, this is no surprise. It's a well-researched aspect. These are so-called reproductive strategies. The reasons why men and women cheat are different. From an evolutionary perspective, the consequences of cheating are also different. I'll cover reproductive strategies in detail in future episodes, as it's a crucial topic you need to understand. For now, to help you grasp today's episode, I'll outline the basic biological strategies. Men, first and foremost, seek attractive and sexually available partners. That's what men find attractive. It's in our nature. Only afterward do they think about potential relationships with them. Guys, have you ever seen an attractive woman? What was the first thought that popped into your head? Damn, she's hot. I'd go at her like dog going after a ham. Or maybe, what a wonderful woman. I'd love to marry her. Women, on the other hand, seek the best possible genes for their offspring and the best access to a male's resources, choosing from all available suitors. That's what they find attractive. It's in their nature. Nature doesn't care about anyone's happiness, only about reproduction and the survival of the species. It achieves this through emotions and hormones. There's no point in being upset about this. Those are the rules of the game. It's pure biology. Now that we know the basic criteria that guide men and women, meaning we understand the supply and demand in the dating market, and we know that both sides have what the other is looking for, we can answer the question, why do people cheat? The most complete answer is, they cheat because they can. Men cheat because they find sexual partners willing to sleep with them. If no woman ever agreed to sleep with a man voluntarily, the number of affairs would practically be zero. If a man doesn't possess traits desired by women, his value in the dating market and especially his chances of sex drop to almost zero. There's even a special term for people who can't attract women and are in involuntary celibacy. They want to, but they can't. That term is incels. The availability and high effectiveness of contraceptives like birth control pills nearly 100% and condoms about 95% further ensure that unwanted consequences of sex practically don't exist. This removes any incentive for cautious sexual behavior. Sex can be and is used instrumentally. For women, having a large number of sexual partners carries negative consequences beyond motherhood, such as difficulty forming and maintaining lasting bonds. The severity of these problems is directly proportional to the number of sexual partners, but I'll cover that in a separate episode. Men with strong genes or who possess resources that women demand can pretty much be certain of finding a sexual partner. This happens because women are hypergamous by nature and because, as mentioned earlier, social norms have loosened. From the perspective of a man with these traits, he's living in ideal times. Never before in history has access to sex been as easy and widespread as it is today. You just have to remember, you must have traits women desire. Otherwise, it won't work. If a man earns relatively low wages and lacks personality traits that women subconsciously adore, his dating market value and especially his chances of sex plummet to almost zero. There's not much choice even in finding a steady partner. But if his financial situation improves, if he starts earning good money, good being subjective, of course before he knows it, women will notice that he's become, in quotes, a good catch. Better clothes or a nicer car signal money, and money signals higher social status, something women automatically desire. You could say women will start loving such a man very quickly. Of course, this love is just rationalization, because why didn't these women love him before when he earned less money? Unaware men dislike it when a woman is after his money. They sense that they themselves aren't the object of her interest. Women know this, So they say what sounds nice to avoid reducing their chances of reproductive success. That's life. You need to know this. Guys, I wish you all lots of money, but I know that won't happen. So instead, I hope that at least once in your life, you will have significantly more money and enjoy life for 6 months or a year. Because then, you'll experience firsthand what kind of women will suddenly be interested in you, the kind you never had access to before. Until you experience it, you won't believe it. And I don't blame you, because a few years ago, I thought it was all bragging and lies. After all, in movies, love was the most important thing, not money. But now, having lived it, I know the rules of the game, and I don't resent them, though at first, I couldn't believe it and struggled to accept it. For a woman who's been cheated on, infidelity is deeply painful because, on a subconscious level, two things happen. Cheating usually means another female could take her place beside her man and thus gain control over his resources. This fear is primal, but, from an evolutionary standpoint, entirely rational. The resources the man provided and the ability to use them in raising offspring are now in question, threatening survival. So, fear for the future arises. I've discussed how powerful fear can be in previous episodes. Self-esteem. If another woman could attract a man who was previously devoted to her, the reptilian brain interprets this as the cheated woman losing her attractiveness, her sex appeal. Lower attractiveness means an inevitable reduction in the pool of men she can choose from. At a primal subconscious level, this triggers another understandable fear because the consequences of such betrayal could impact survival for the woman and, in the future, a woman with a child. These behavioral patterns are remnants of evolution. But since evolution is a slow process, brains still interpret such behavior as a threat. Because these two mechanisms are subconscious, you'll often hear women say they're different, strong, and independent. But don't be fooled. It does apply. The rules of nature are as follows. Women are the gatekeepers of sex pleasure. Men are the gatekeepers of commitment. This means that if a man doesn't want to enter a monogamous relationship with a woman, she has the problem, not him. He decides the level of investment. Sex can be obtained from another woman. Those are the rules. Women don't want you to know this because it's not in their interest. Such knowledge interferes with their biological goal, their reproductive strategy, because if you knew, they couldn't convince you that they are the ones in control. That would mean you'd at least have an equal position in the relationship. Men, you need to know your true value, and then the doors to paradise will swing wide open. With this knowledge, you can decide how to act. Without it, you're at the mercy of whatever happens to you. You're passengers, not drivers. To summarize, men cheat because they can and because it's a biologically programmed strategy. Of course, it'd be great to control one's impulses rather than being controlled by them, but I know that's not always possible, and without practice, it's practically impossible. What stops men from cheating? Lack of opportunity. For smarter men, potential consequences, being ruled at fault in a divorce. There's no way to completely prevent cheating. If someone decides to cheat, they'll find a way. This applies to both men and women. You can't lock someone up at home against their will. That's imprisonment. Women cheat because they can, at least as long as they're physically attractive and desired by men, and because their hypergamous nature drives them to seek the best available mate. If they cheat, it's because they believe sex will help them secure a man with better genes or higher status than their current partner. This is an evolutionary reproductive strategy meant to make such a man commit, granting her access to his resources. If successful, she'll quickly forget the betrayed man. Repression mechanisms kick in to prevent excessive grief or guilt. Remember, this is primal, subconscious behavior, and this knowledge isn't widely known because most people aren't aware of it. Selfishness discourages sharing such effective knowledge. Men living in the matrix, believing the mainstream portrayal of relationships, won't accept it until they experience it firsthand. They'll reject and deny reality. Meanwhile, those who do know reap the benefits because they have an advantage in the dating market. Again, don't resent biology. Those are the rules, which is why I'm telling you. You need to know them. It's no secret that women generally have a much easier time forming intimate connections than men. The more attractive the woman, the easier it is. This stems from the fact that men primarily seek sex, while women are the gatekeepers. They decide if, when, and with whom they'll sleep. Men pursue them, not the other way around. At least up to a certain point. It often happens that a woman who cheated hoping to gain an advantage later realizes the man only wanted physical pleasure, not a long-term relationship. If the plan fails, there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. If she has no other promising men in her orbit, she may try returning to the betrayed man. Not out of love, but because she has no other options. Women don't like being alone. Such a woman will never voluntarily admit to cheating. She'll deny everything classic behavior to protect her ego from acknowledging she hurt someone. Shift blame onto you. She'll say things like, "It's all your fault. I didn't know where we were headed. You misunderstood there was no cheating. If you loved me, you wouldn't even think that." In other words, reversal of blame. Even if you catch her red-handed, you'll hear, "It's not what you think. She's just lying here." And if she's a skilled manipulator, which on average women are much better at than men, she might even make you feel guilty for catching her. She'll act like you're the one who did wrong. As future or current mothers, women had to act this way because it increased their own and their children's chances of survival, that is, our ancestors. If a woman settled for inferior genes, she'd risk having weaker children who might not survive. Only now, with advanced medicine, is infant mortality low. In the past, things weren't so rosy. Pregnancy and raising children who, in humans, are 100% dependent on parents for the first few years make securing the strongest genes and greatest resources evolutionarily justified and practically understandable. At this point, especially if you've recently taken the red pill, you might think I'm justifying women's actions. But that's not the case. I'm not judging or condemning them because I understand. I've simply accepted that this is nature. I don't condone cheating and try to prevent it, but I also don't suffer because the world works this way. Though I vividly remember how unpleasant it was at first, that experience taught me how the subconscious works and what truly motivates people. Searching for answers, I also learned when and how I and you were deceived. For a man who discovers he's been cheated on, two issues arise. Betrayal of trust. From an evolutionary perspective, trust within a community was fundamental. Because, for example, on a dangerous hunt, hunters had to rely on each other to follow through. Otherwise, the hunt could end in death. In the social sphere, a relationship family is the most basic community, so you should be able to trust in it. But blind trust without verification in today's world is, in my opinion, a reckless and naive strategy. Practical consequences. For a man, cheating can result in raising another man's child. If you find out, say, after 30 years, due to some accident like needing a blood transfusion and realizing the blood type doesn't match them from an evolutionary standpoint, game over. You've lost. You've spent time and significant resources on a child or children that aren't yours. For the average man at that point, it's over because there's no time or resources left for another child. Checkmate. Unless you're wealthy and high status, in which case you might still have a chance. Otherwise, it's the end. Cheating is never pleasant, but I fear that for most nice guys, it's unavoidable. I just hope that if you can't avoid it, you experience it sooner rather than later, so you learn the rules of the game quickly and pay the smallest possible price for that lesson. In an ideal world, partners would be honest about their intentions, allowing the other person to take action. But we don't live in an ideal world. In love and war, all is fair. That's why you must learn the arsenal of these tactics. Thank you for being with me till the end. The next video will be available very soon, so till the next time.